प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
ओम गुरुभ्यो नमः। Jai Gurudev. We continue with chapter 4, which is the Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, of renunciation, of action, translation and commentary by Maharshi Ji, and I am trying to give the essence. I have spoken up to verse 31, and today we will continue with 32, the sloka number 32 and 33. But before I start the 32 and 33, I will just review briefly the verse number 31. Yagna Sishtamrita Bhujo Yanti Brahma Sanatanam Nayam Lokostva Yagnasya Kutonyaha Kurusottama. The English translation is: eating the remains of the yagya, which is nectar, they reach the eternal Brahman. This world, O best of Kurus, is not for him who offers no yagya, much less the world hereafter. Here, Bhagavan shows the process of purification or yagya, and it is necessary both for success in this world and also to gain strength for success in the world hereafter. Here, it is important to understand that there are many yagyas, and of all the yagyas, the yagya of transcendental meditation is the most effective. Why? Because it is the direct means of bringing the mind to absolute purity and enabling it to contact the source of limitless life energy and intelligence. Now again, when one transcends and experiences the bliss consciousness, then even when the yagya is over, the bliss remains. And here Bhagavan is saying, Those who enjoy this bliss, they are the ones who reach the eternal Brahman. Because it is this transcendental bliss consciousness, through continued practice, develops into cosmic and eventually God consciousness. And finally, Bhagavan says that if a man does not perform yajna, he will not be successful neither in this world nor hereafter. Now, let us go over the verses 32 and 33 for today. Evam bahuvidha yajna vitata brahmano mukhe karmajan vidditan sarvan evam gnatva vimokshase. Next, Shreyan dravya mayadyagnat gnanayagna parantapa sarvam karmakhilam parthagnane parisamapyate. Here is the English translation, verse number 32. In this very yajnas of many kinds are set forth in the words of the Veda. Know them all as born of action, thus knowing you will find release. Again, in this way, yajnas of many kinds are set forth in the words of the Veda. Know them all as born of action. Thus knowing, you will find release. Next, better than the yajna through material means is the yajna of knowledge, O scorcher of enemies. All action without exception, O Partha, culminates in knowledge. I will repeat this again when we get to the verse. Now, coming back to verse 32, let us look at the first phrase. In this way, yajnas of many kinds are set forth in the words of the Veda. Here, the Vedas speak of various kinds of yajna, and these various kinds of yajna help the process of evolution of man at different levels of life. And here, in this verse, Bhagavan means that all this various knowledge which is available through the various yajnas, which is found in the Vedas, is complete in itself. That means all this knowledge which is found in the Vedas regarding these various yajnas is complete in itself, and it has only to be adopted. Now let us look at the next phrase. Know them all as born of action. Here, this phrase, know them all as born of action, suggests another point. Bhagavan wants to make it very clear that action is necessary to perform yajna, and unless they are performed, yajna will not yield any result. So just having some theoretical knowledge, some book knowledge of these yajnas has its value, but it does not in itself carry the fruits of the yajna. So here Bhagavan is again emphasizing that all the knowledge of yajna which he has been teaching in the previous verses and which has the authority of the Vedas is essential for success in this world. But at the same time, he indicates that this is not the final knowledge which will free him from bondage. Again, this is not the final knowledge which will free him from bondage. something more has to be known. So here it is important to understand the knowledge that yajna is activity and the reality is transcendental is to be known. So the whole of yajna or the activity of the yajna is all in the field of activity. But the reality is transcendental. So one has not to remain permanently in the field of the activity of yajna. So what this means is, then one should not remain in the field of activity without transcending and realizing the transcendental value or the permanent experience of this activity. So the knowledge that yajna is activity and that reality is transcendental will certainly free a man. So again, Bhagavan is saying that all the practices which bring enlightenment, which is yajnas, are in the field of activity, and that the goal is to transcend that field and to arrive at transcendental consciousness, gain the cosmic consciousness, and ultimately rise to the consummation of all action in the state of unity in God consciousness. So again, the medium of attention during this yajna must enable the mind to reach the transcendent and realize the absolute state of being. And it is important for every seeker and aspirant of higher states of consciousness to know this and to practice this meditation, transcendental meditation. So let me read the verse again, then all this will make sense. In this way, yajnas of many kinds are set forth in the words of the Veda. Know them all as born of action. Thus knowing, you will find release. Now there is more light that is shed on this in verse number 33, and here is the translation. Better than the yajna through material means is the yajna of knowledge, O scorcher of enemies. All action without exception, O Partha, culminates in knowledge. Again I repeat, better than the yajna through material means is the yajna of knowledge, O scorcher of enemies. All action without exception, O Partha, culminates in knowledge. Here in verse number 28, Bhagavan has described these material yajna by means of material possessions. Let me just briefly recall that verse. Some likewise perform yajna by means of material possessions, by austerity, and by the practice of yoga, while other aspirants of rigid vows offer as yajna their scriptural learning and knowledge. Here, Bhagavan is describing offering material, bodily, and mental methods for the purification, for the yajna, which is for the sake of evolution and for the sake of gaining freedom in cosmic consciousness. Here, the yajna by means of material possessions denotes giving away wealth to the deserving. And it also means the performance of Vedic rituals by offering sacrificial fires. Here again, performing the yajna by austerity means subjecting the body to heat, cold, and other such offerings for the sake of purification. and offer as yajna their scriptural learning and knowledge, is the best thing is to sit and meditate and transcend the field of learning, experience the transcendental being, which is the goal of all learning. So this is what Bhagavan has said in the verse number 28. So here in verse number 33, Bhagavan is saying, better than the yajna through material means is the yajna of knowledge. And all action without exception culminates in knowledge. So now we have seen yajna, what is yajna through material means. Now here yajna of knowledge means action that leads to knowledge. So yajna of material means is performed through material offerings, whereas yajna of knowledge is performed through mental activity. And what is this mental activity? Mental activity leading to the state of transcendental consciousness, and also the mental activity of understanding of transcendent, which is the Atma. Here, the ultimate knowledge is in the transcendent is God consciousness. So initially, it is the knowledge which is the understanding and experience of transcendental consciousness, which then becomes the cosmic consciousness, and which in turn then develops into God consciousness. And here Bhagavan again is saying that action here means evolution to gain its highest peak, and this highest peak of evolution is attained when one attains unity with God, and this is referred to as God consciousness. So in this state of fulfillment, there is nothing that he needs to do. He has arrived at the goal of all actions. So when one has attained the unity with God and attained the God consciousness, then one is completely fulfilled. Now let us look at the next phrase. Bhagavan is saying, all action without exception, O Partha, culminates in knowledge. So here the main goal of the yajna is to attain a certain degree of purification. And here in the experience of the transcendental consciousness, when this pure consciousness is permanently achieved, then the self is realized as separate from activity. It is referred to as cosmic consciousness. And when one attains further the God consciousness, then the extreme limit of purification has been achieved. And having achieved it, a person naturally feels fulfilled in eternal freedom. And this state of fulfillment is the goal of all action, the goal of all yajna. And this is why Bhagavan says that knowledge is a field towards which all actions converge and which they finally become merged in the being. All action without exception, O Partha, culminates in knowledge. Here, Bhagavan in this discourse, starting from verse 23 onwards, he brings the importance of yajna. He points out that the yajna is the path to enlightenment. And when he has established the greatness of it, he suddenly says that this is all in the field of action, thereby implying first that it is within the reach of every man. That means everyone can perform the yajna because it is in the field of action. And secondly, no man should remain held up within the field of action or yajna. So once you have started the yajna in this activity, Bhagavan is saying one should not be stuck within the field of action or yajna, because this is not the final goal of life. And it is important to point this out, because one needs to understand that knowledge is the goal of all actions. It starts with the activity and action, but the knowledge is the goal of all actions. So yajna through material means can at best raise the level of consciousness in the relative field of life. Again, yajna through material means can at best raise the level of consciousness in the relative field of life. Whereas the yajna of knowledge transforms the entire human mechanism into a means by which the divine expresses itself in the world. Again, the yajna of knowledge transforms the human being into the divine consciousness, God consciousness. And a human is able to express as that divine principle or divinity. So finally, Bhagavan again says, the yajna of knowledge, leading as it does to the state, is better than yajna through material means. Here, Bhagavan is laying stress on the knowledge as against action, and he addresses Arjuna as scorcher of enemies. When he says to Arjuna, you are the scorcher of enemies, that means Bhagavan is saying the one who is engaged in vigorous activity. And he is trying to show him that it is through knowledge that life can be made most dynamic, not just only pure action, but by gaining the knowledge, life can be made most dynamic. So here ends the essence of the verses 32 and 33. Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, of renunciation of action, chapter 4. And it is the essence of translation and commentary given by Maharshi Ji. Now I will add a few words. Om Gurubhyo Namaha. Here, starting from the verses 25 to 30, Bhagavan Krishna has described or given a brilliant exposition of the 12 types of activities. And these 12 types of activities actually cover the entire range of human activities. Now, understanding that yajna is a sacrifice from lower consciousness to higher consciousness, something lower to higher, bringing more purification. Yajna is to bring more and more purification. And so far, trying to understand that one has to gain the subtler aspects of the yajna in addition to the gross aspect of the action, because all knowledge lies only in the subtler aspects and gaining the knowledge of the transcendent, which we refer to as Atmagnanam. So when we understand the principles Maharshi has laid out, the importance of transcending from gross to the subtle, and understanding all range of this activity from gross to subtle, and then going beyond the subtlest and experiencing the pure consciousness, where you gain the knowledge, or which is the goal of every yajna, then you are no more stuck only at the level of the action. Then one has the ability to convert all human activities into a form of worship. So, for a seeker, For a seeker who is trying to gain this Atmagnanam and who wants to be Jivan Mukta, then it becomes a regular practice of these 12 yajnas throughout their lives. So practicing these 12 yajnas, then it becomes a worship. The whole life becomes a worship. All the routine activities of life become worship. So here is the greatest gain for the seeker. And it starts, there is the spirit of sacrifice. And this sacrifice is also sacrificing something which is lower to gain the higher. Sacrificing something which is gross to experience the subtler and then the transcendent. Here, the actual ritual of fire worship is known as yajna, and the ahuti or the offering is offered as an oblation to the fire god. Now for a seeker, every perception, every thought, every action and every emotion, everything is offered as an oblation to the Paramatma. And this happens naturally and spontaneously when one transcends. So here again, for a seeker, it is important to understand that something which is limited is offered into the yajna so that it becomes unlimited. That means your individuality, your individual mind and in your individual thoughts, these are offered to attain that absolute, the cosmic value. So here it is very beautiful when we understand that something that is limited, that is forever changing, that is forever is degenerating, and that which is bound and that to which you are attached, you are offering all of these, whether it is perception, your thoughts or your feelings, your ideas and ideals, to gaining something higher. Further, this yajna also brings into light that some offer restraint or austerity, and some offer yoga of self-control, and some offer wealth to others, and some do yoga practices and study literature and scriptures, and some offer breath into breath with these pranayamas, prana and apana using, and then some offer practices to gain the inner strength, and some have a lot of external activity, and all of these are ultimately to gain only that final goal, that is the knowledge of the self, which becomes the cosmic consciousness and the God consciousness. And this is the finality of the goal. So if one can develop this daily by daily transcending and see that everything is offered as a yajna, and you live that with that ideal that this is the yajna, whatever you're doing, then one achieves the goal and one achieves the Brahman. So I will stop here. Jai Gurudev. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu.
अज्ञानातिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे विष्णोः पदमवाप्नोति भयशोकादिवर्जितः गीताध्ययनशीलस्य प्राणायामपरस्य च नैव सन्ति हि पापानि पूर्वजन्मकृतानि च मलनिर्मोचनं पुंसां जलस्नानं दिने दिने सकृद्गीताम्भसि स्नानं संसारमलनाशनं गीतासु गीता कर्तव्या किमन्यैः शास्त्रविस्तरैः या स्वयं पद्मनाभस्य मुखपद्माद्विनिसृता भारतामृतसर्वस्वं विष्णोर्वक्त्राद् विनिसृतं गीता गङ्गोदकं पीत्वा पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् एकं शास्त्रं